I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Your Honor, if I may, Mr. Lassard is refusing this morning.
All right. Who do we have from the PD's office this morning? You're off camera. I can't see you.
Morning, Your Honor. Derek Miller.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Good morning, Mr. Gant. Nice to see you or hear you eventually this morning.
Good morning, Judge.
Hi, tell me your name.
Joseph Breen.
Mr. Breen, you are here today for an initial appearance on some DV charges where there was a warrant for your arrest. It's a DV assault and a disorderly conduct. You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can be used against you. Looks like you have some other matters going on. Do you have some other cases here in Pima County you're dealing with right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they felonies?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do on your city case, sir, is I am going to impose, actually, I'm going to release you on your city charges, but I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. Your next hearing in city court is going to be April 18th at 2025 at 9 a.m. That's going to be a non-transport review hearing. So what's going to happen, Mr. Breen, is someone from the public defender's office is going to be talking with you from the city and kind of keeping an eye on what's happening with your felony cases so that they can determine how best to resolve your city cases as well. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
I do need to tell you that if you do get out of custody on your felonies, you are responsible for appearing on that April 18th, 2025 date. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today, Mr. Breen.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Your Honor, can we do Mr. Warlo out of order? I'm still waiting on Munoz Garcia to arrive.
Yes. Morning. Tell me your full name.
Nily Warlo.
Mr. Warlo, you are here to talk about a Maricopa County Superior Court warrant. Do you still have other matters pending here in Pima County, sir?
Yes, ma'am. have sentencing tomorrow.
Okay. So this is about that Maricopa County warrant, and it looks like you've been here a couple times before. So what's going to happen is your bond on the Maricopa County case is going to remain. We're going to set another review hearing date for you of March 24th at 9 a.m. If you end up being sentenced, Mr. Warlo, tomorrow, then Maricopa County will have to come pick you up after that if they want to take you back to their jurisdiction. So hopefully by the time your next review hearing comes around here, that March 24th date, you'll be gone. But we do want to keep setting dates as long as you're in the Pima County Jail to make sure we keep track of that Maricopa County case. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So that's all for today. You're all done.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm still waiting on Munoz Garcia to arrive. Can we just start on the misdemeanors and do him when he gets here?
Yes, the other option is this is another review hearing. Do you show that he still has felony charges? It's been several months now, so it looks like he does still have matters here in Pima County. If that's your information, I can just give you the next date for him for his review hearing, and you can let him know that.
That works, Your Honor.
All right, so we'll show that Mr. Munoz Garcia has a review hearing set for March 24th at 9 a.m. It is on a Navajo County Superior Court warrant. The bond remains on that case since he still has matters pending here in Pima County. So if you want to give him that new date, he doesn't need to appear today. If he's on his way, I don't mind seeing him either, but we can also handle it that way.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. First. Yes. Up, Chair. Okay, taxi folks.
Ooh, good morning.
Hi, tell me your name.
Heidi Curtis.
Ms. Curtis, you are here today on a couple of different matters. The first is a warrant out of Sarita Municipal Court for criminal trespass.
Yeah.
You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So it looks like this warrant goes back to October of 2022.
Mhm.
Did you know this warrant was out there?
Yeah. I thought I already took care of it by staying for 2 days and then in jail.
Okay. So if I release you today on this and give you a court date in the future, will you promise to go so you can make sure you get this
Yeah.
matter taken care of?
Yeah.
All right. I am going to release you today on the Sarita matter. Your next court date is going to be March 11th, 2025 at 8:30 in the morning. You do have to appear at that date and time, Ms. Curtis, so that you can get this
Okay.
matter resolved. If you fail to appear, they're going to issue another warrant for you. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
In the meantime, do not go back to the incident location where the criminal trespass occurred. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then we have your other matter that we need to talk about, and that's going to be a justice court matter. You also have a warrant out of justice court for false reporting. I'm going to release you on that matter as well, ma'am. Your next court date on that case is going to be March 24th at 9:30 here at Pima County Justice Court. You do need to appear at that date and time or they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yeah.
When you get released, Ms. Curtis, today, you're going to get copies of the paperwork that are going to have the conditions of release. It's going to give you your court dates. Hold on to
All right.
that paperwork, okay?
All right.
Do you have someplace that you're residing right now?
Kind of.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so if you need assistance with housing or any other services, the transition center is right outside the jail. When you get released later today, it's a trailer that kind of sits off of the property there. You could stop by there. They're going to be open from 8 to 5 and see if there's something that they may be able to do to assist you with services. I would encourage you to check that out.
All right,
All right, you're all done.
all right. Where do I go now?
Oh, yeah, put your hands in, please. Leadford.
Hi, tell me your name.
Joseph Leadford.
Mr. Ledford, you are here this morning on a charge of domestic violence assault. It is a misdemeanor offense out of Green Valley. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services today. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. They also try to contact the victim of this matter, which I see is your son, so we can determine appropriate release conditions. They were unable, or actually they were able to have contact with him, and he does not want to have contact with you at this time. If I release you today on this charge, Mr. Ledford, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
You are also going to have to stay away from your son, Mr. Davis. You're not going to be allowed to return to the incident location or go anywhere where he is living or working. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to establish an alternate address away from your son?
Yes, I will. I need to go with an officer to pick up my truck so I can get going back and forth to work.
We can take care of that. So I'm going to release you on this charge today, Mr. Ledford, on your promise to appear. Your conditions of release are to commit no acts of domestic violence, no contact with the victim, don't return to the incident location, establish an alternative address as we've discussed, and I'm going to check a box on your conditions of release that allows you to return with a police escort to pick up your belongings. You're going to need to take a copy of the order that you will get when you get released from custody today to the sheriff's department. If it's in Green Valley, they will accompany you to the address. Just make sure you do not go back there by yourself without law enforcement. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next court date is February 27th at 8:30 in the morning at Green Valley Justice Court. The address and date and time I just gave you are also going to be on the paperwork that you get when you get released later today. If you do fail to appear for that hearing, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear at that hearing?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be.
You're all done for today, Mr. Ledford.
No.
Hi, tell me your name.
Wayne Curtis Noak.
Mr. Noak, you are here today on a couple of warrants out of Green Valley Justice Court for DUI. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm showing an address for you on West Andrew Potter Street. Is that still a good address for you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Looks like these warrants are from 2015 and 2017.
I was told that it was issued on 2019. That's when I got picked up on.
The warrants were issued on 2019, yes, but the offense dates were from 2015 and 2017.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if I release you today, clearly these matters are not going to go away until you show up at Green Valley Justice Court and get them taken care of. If I release you today with some conditions, will you promise to show up at a date that I give you to get these matters taken care of?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I am going to release you on that promise to appear. Your additional conditions of release: do not drive without a valid license, and you're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Your next court date is going to be February 27th at 8:30 in the morning at Green Valley Justice Court. You are required to appear at that date and time, and if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the conditions of release that I've given you here today, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for your hearing on February 27th?
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today. Hi, tell me your name.
Fernando Alcantar.
Mr. Alcantar, you are here today on a charge of domestic violence assault. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Gail, are we showing any kind of hold from DOC?
We are not, Your Honor.
Okay. So, Mr. Alcantar, I've had an opportunity to review some information provided to me by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you, your circumstances, and the case. I had information that you are currently on parole. I'm just
Yes.
telling you that because you may need to contact your parole officer.
Okay.
We're here to talk about your conditions of release today on this domestic violence assault charge. This is also the time for your arraignment as well as your initial appearance on this matter. I am going to enter not guilty plea on your behalf. You are presumed innocent on this charge. If I release you on this charge today, sir, you're not going to be allowed to have any contact with Miss Lohman, who is the victim in this case. Do you have somewhere else that you can reside that is not with her?
It's been taken care of.
Okay,
Yeah, I do.
all right. And if I give you a court date that you have to show up to in the future, will you promise to show up at that court date?
So will you?
All right, I am going to release you on your promise to appear on this case. You're to commit no acts of domestic violence. At this time, you're not to have any contact with the victim in this case. Do not go anywhere near where she is living or working. Your next court date on this matter is going to be March 18th at 1:30 in the afternoon, and that is going to be in front of Judge Millian. That will be at Tucson City Court. Do you need to return to wherever this happened to get any of your belongings? Okay, so what I'm going to do is check a box on your conditions of release form. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of that form. The box I'm checking says you can return one time with law enforcement to collect any of the belongings that you need to get. So make sure that you either take the conditions of release form to a nearby police station, or you can call 911 and let them know that you do need an escort to pick up your belongings in a domestic violence matter, and they'll know what to do. Do not return to the house where the victim is without law enforcement. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, I do. Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be March 18th at 1:30. If you fail to appear at that court date, a warrant could issue for your arrest. They could also go forward in your absence. And if a bench warrant issues, they could go forward with a trial in your absence as well. If you're convicted and can't be sentenced within 90 days of your conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences if you fail to appear for your next hearing?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, you're all done for today.
Thank you.
Littleton?
Hi, tell me your name.
Orville Littleton.
Mr. Littleton, you were here today on charges of assault, criminal damage, and disorderly conduct. They are all domestic violence charges. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is the time for your initial appearance and also your arraignment on these charges out of Tucson City Court. I'm entering not guilty pleas on your behalf. You are presumed innocent. I've had an opportunity to review some information by pretrial services. That information tells me a little bit about you, your circumstances, and also whether or not they were able to contact your sister, who is the victim in this case. They were not able to do that. So if I release you today on these charges, Mr. Littleton, will you promise to appear at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are not going to be allowed to have any contact with your sister at this time. You can't go back to where she's living or working. Do you have somewhere else that you can reside that is not with her?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I will release you on your promise to appear. Your conditions of release are that you not commit any acts of domestic violence. And as I've said, you can't have any contact with your sister. Your next hearing on this case is going to be March 20th at 9:30 in the morning at Tucson City Court. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of your paperwork. It'll have the court date and time as well as the location where you need to be. If you fail to appear at that hearing, they can issue a warrant for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing and set subsequent hearings in your absence, including a trial. If you're convicted at the trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences for failing to appear, Mr. Littleton?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today.
I do have to grab my, I do have some of my stuff over there.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is check a box on the conditions of release form that allows you to return one time with law enforcement to get your belongings. You need to take a copy of the order that you get when you get released today to a nearby police station, or you can call 911 and let them know that you need an escort to pick up your belongings in a domestic violence matter. But do not return to that house without them. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done.
Thank you.
Hassan Maiyo.
Hi, tell me your full name. Tell me your name.
Hassan, Hassan,
And your last name.
Maiyo.
All right. You are here this morning on a bunch of warrants out of Tucson City Court for theft, criminal trespass, drug paraphernalia, and more criminal trespass. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We're here to set conditions of release on these warrants today. I am going to impose a bond of $500 today. That's going to be cash or secured. You are, if you post that bond and get released, not to have any contact with the victims in this case and do not return to any of the incident locations where you were trespassed and where you committed the theft. Do not return to those places. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you. Do you understand those conditions of release, sir?
Say what? I didn't understand what you said.
You're
Can
going to
you repeat?
You're going to be held in the Pima County Jail on a $500 cash or secured bond today so that you can deal with your city court warrants. Do you understand that?
Is it me?
You. Do you understand that I'm holding you on $500 cash or secured bond today for your warrants out of city courts? I'm not asking if you like it. I'm asking you if you understand that. If you don't understand, sir, you can go back, and what we'll do is roll this hearing to later tonight to see if you're in a better position to understand what's happening. Those are your
No,
options.
What language do you speak?
I speak my mind. I don't think she's talking to me. She's not talking to me.
I am talking to you, sir.
What language did you say was my mind?
My mind? Yeah.
So English doesn't appear to be his first language, Your Honor, and I believe a translator may be necessary.
Sir,
I don't know if that's something we can arrange at a later hearing.
well, we can if that's what the issue is. Sir, what is your primary language?
My mind.
Do you speak English?
I speak English. Yes.
Do you understand English?
Yes.
Okay. So when I tell you that you have multiple warrants out of Tucson City Court for criminal trespass and theft, do you understand what that means?
I don't know what it is.
Okay. And why do you think you don't know what that means? Is that because you don't understand the language that I'm speaking and you would like an interpreter, or is there some other reason you don't understand?
I don't understand because
Because,
that's not me.
okay. So what we're going to do, sir, is we're going to continue this hearing to tonight. Jail, can we try to see if the assistance of the interpreter is helpful?
Yeah.
And then, do you have any other holds or information on him?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So what we're going to do, sir, is I'm going to continue this hearing to this evening based on your not understanding what's happening. I need you to understand what's happening before we can proceed here today. So you're going to be held until tonight, and you'll be seen again this evening by a different judge who will try to explain these things with the assistance of an interpreter. All right?
You'll come back and talk to somebody tonight.
And I.
Yep. They're gonna try to find someone who speaks your same language.
All right, you're all done for right now, sir.
So you wanna go with them for now?
Mr. G, you're up next. Say what? I can do.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah.
And if it's helpful to the court staff or the jail, my appears to be a most common language in Somalia. That helps finding a translator. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Hi, tell me your name.
My name is Nico Picard Swan, Your Honor.
Mr. Swan, you are here today on a charge of disorderly conduct out of Tucson City Court. It is a misdemeanor charge. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is the time for your initial appearance where we set conditions of release on this charge. It's also the time for your arraignment on this charge. I'm going to enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. You are presumed innocent today. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. They tell me a little bit about the circumstances of this offense and a little bit about you. They also try to contact the victim in this case, who is your girlfriend, and then they were not able to contact her. So 2 questions for you, Mr. Swan. If I release you today on this charge, will you promise to show up at court at a future date that I give you?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if I release you today, you're not going to be allowed to have any contact with Miss Collins. Do you have somewhere else that you can reside that is not with her?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And that order will stay in place until there's a further order of the court. I'm showing, and I should note that we also have a Form 4C, the intimate partner risk assessment, and I did have an opportunity to review that. I will note that the victim did decline to answer questions on that form, but that is information available to the court this morning. So, sir, you're going to be released today. You're not to commit any further acts of domestic violence. And as I've indicated, you can't have any contact with Miss Collins. Do not go anywhere near where she is living or working. Do you understand all those conditions of release?
Your Honor, I have a question.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? What if the circumstances behind it were that, like, we were living?
So, Mr. Swan, I know Mr. Miller just muted the mic, so we don't want you to talk about whatever the circumstances were related to this offense. So I need to make sure that you do not have any contact with Miss Collins. That's the order this court is imposing on you. Do you understand that?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Your next court date is going to be March 18th, 2025 at 1:30. That's going to be at Tucson City Court. When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of the paperwork that talks about your release conditions. If you fail to appear at that court date, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Also, they could go forward in your absence with that hearing. They could also set a trial and go forward with that trial in your absence. If you fail to appear at that trial and you're convicted and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Swan, it looks like you have a general delivery address. Are those your circumstances at this time?
I was living out of my car right now, so I don't know.
Okay. So, Mr. Swan, when you get released later today, there is the transition center. It is a trailer that's just adjacent to where the jail is, and they can help point it out to you as well. If you go by there, they may be able to assist you with services. They have a variety of services that involve housing, substance abuse, mental health, all kinds of things. You may benefit from stopping by there. Do you understand?
Understand.
Done for today, Mr. Swan.
Oh, Hardman?
Hi, tell me your name.
James Hardman,
What's your middle name, sir?
Zarone.
Daron, and are you a junior?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You are here today on a felony warrant out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Do you have a copy of that warrant up, Mr. Miller, that you can show him the charges?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to have you take a look at what Mr. Miller is about to show you and the 3 charges that are listed on that fugitive warrant, sir.
Feel it.
All right, did you get a chance to see those charges, sir? All right. So there is a $250,000 bond on the warrant out of Oklahoma. This is the time for your initial appearance where we're going to set conditions of release on that warrant. I am going to honor the $250,000 bond. It's going to be a cash bond for the warrant. I'm going to appoint the legal defender's office here in Pima County to represent you. And your next hearing on this matter is going to be a fugitive hearing. And that's going to be February 25th at 2:30 in the afternoon. Someone from the legal defender's office will be out to talk with you about what's going to happen at that hearing. You'll be transported by the jail to that hearing. If for some reason you do post the $250,000 cash bond, then you are required to appear at the hearing at Pima County Superior Court on February 25th at 2:30. If you fail to appear for any hearings, they could issue additional warrants for your arrest. Do you understand the conditions that I've imposed today, sir?
Yes.
Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for hearings?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today.
Good morning, Your Honor. Neil Pension for the state.
Good morning.
Mr. Gant, if you wanted to take off, I got it from here.
Thanks, Judge. May I be excused?
Of course, Mr. Gant. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
And do we have our interpreter on the line?
Yes, Your Honor, the interpreter is on the line.
Good morning. It should be our Spanish speaker
morning.
next.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, sir. Tell me your name.
Hola, señor. ¿Nos dice su nombre, por favor?
Pedro Javier Palacios
Pedro Javier Palacios
Barrera.
Barrera.
All right. This is the time for your initial appearance on some felony charges involving narcotic drug possession, dangerous drug possession, and drug paraphernalia.
Bueno, estas son, es la comparecencia inicial para cargos de delito grave correspondientes a posesión de narcóticos, posesión de drogas peligrosas y adminículos de drogas.
You do have the right to remain silent on these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Tiene derecho a permanecer en silencio con respecto a estos cargos. Cualquier cosa que usted diga puede ser usada y será usada en su contra.
You do have a right to an attorney in this case. These are felony charges, and I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. You have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today.
Bueno, y tiene derecho a un abogado y para sus cargos de delito grave voy a nombrar la Defensoría Pública para que lo represente. El día de hoy está un abogado sentado al lado suyo para asistirlo en la audiencia del día de hoy.
I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and your circumstances.
Y tuve la oportunidad de revisar la información de los servicios previos al juicio que hablan un poco sobre usted y las circunstancias suyas.
Based on the nature of the offenses or the personal possession drug charges, you may be eligible to participate in a pre-indictment diversion program.
Y basado en la naturaleza del delito, señor, que era por posesión de personal de droga, cargos de posesión personal de droga, usted se le puede permitir que se haga o se registre un programa previo a la acusación de gran jurado, que es un programa alternativo.
Okay.
If you're interested in participating in substance abuse treatment and you successfully complete the program and you qualify for it, then the state would not go forward with these felony charges. Are you interested in this program?
Yes.
Bueno, señor, y si usted está interesado en participar en este programa de abuso de sustancias químicas y recibir el tratamiento y lo completa de manera exitosa y califica para el tratamiento, entonces la fiscalía no va a presentar cargos en su contra, no una acusación de gran jurado para delitos graves. ¿Está interesado en ese programa?
Sí, porque ahora me iba a meter ahora este día y tengo una tarjeta donde me iba a ir al club este día, pero me tuvieron.
Yes, because today I had a business card in which I was going to go to cope, but I got detained.
Okay, so what I intend to do is release you to pretrial services today, and we're going to give you a future court date. Does either counsel need to be heard on other conditions?
Bueno,
No, Your Honor.
las intenciones le dicen la juez que tengo es liberarlo, dejarlo en libertad hoy bajo los servicios previos al juicio y luego le va a dar una fecha futura para que se presente a una fecha de corte y le pregunta a los abogados si tienen algo que añadir. El fiscal dice que no.
No, Your Honor.
Y el abogado que está al lado suyo dice que no necesito hablarle a la juez.
All right, so I'm going to release you today to pretrial services. They're an agency that you'll be working with in the STEPS program as well.
Entonces hoy lo voy a liberar bajo la supervisión de los servicios previos al juicio y esa es la agencia que va a estar trabajando con usted también con el programa de STEPS, el programa alternativo.
Okay.
Okay.
You're required to participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial services directs. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on.
Y usted está obligado a participar en el monitoreo y el tratamiento de los que le indique los servicios previos al juicio y tampoco puede consumir drogas, ni alcohol, ni tener armas de fuego mientras está en el proceso de este caso.
Okay.
Your next hearing is going to be February 27th. That's next week at 9 o'clock in the morning. That hearing will be in Pima County Superior Court on the 3rd floor in front of Judge Hampson.
Y su próxima audiencia va a ser el 27 de febrero, eso es la próxima semana, va a ser a las 9 de la mañana en el Tribunal Superior del Condado de Pima, en el tercer piso ante la juez Hampson.
Okay.
Your attorney will be there, pretrial services will be there, and there will be representatives from treatment agencies around Pima County, and that will include COPE, so you can be signed up with services there if you do qualify for this program.
Y para esa audiencia van a estar presentes su abogado, los representantes de servicios previos al juicio y otros representantes de agencias que proporcionan tratamientos. En esas agencias también va a estar presente COPE para que usted si quiere pueda ingresar, registrarse con ellos si califica para el programa.
Okay.
Okay.
It's very important that you show up for that hearing.
Es muy importante que usted se presente a esa audiencia.
Mr. Miller, are we willing to waive time for the preliminary hearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Y está preguntando al señor Miller si está dispuesto a renunciar al tiempo legal para la audiencia preliminar. Dice que sí, su señoría.
So the next court date after that hearing you have next week is going to be April 7th at 1:30, and that's a preliminary hearing.
Y la próxima fecha de corte que va a tener después de la que tiene la próxima semana va a ser el 7 de abril a la 1:30 y va a ser una audiencia preliminar.
So if you don't qualify for the pre-indictment diversion program or you don't show up for that hearing, that preliminary hearing may be the next date.
Bueno, entonces si usted no califica para ese programa de alternativo previo a la acusación de gran jurado, o si no se presenta, entonces la próxima fecha sería esa fecha que le di de la audiencia preliminar.
Okay.
You are responsible for showing up at all future court dates, and if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest.
Usted es responsable de comparecer a todas las próximas fechas de corte y si usted no comparece, se puede emitir una orden de arresto en su contra.
Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear at your hearings?
Sí,
¿Usted
señor.
comprende las consecuencias por no comparecer si no comparece a las audiencias?
Yes, miss.
And
Yes, miss.
do you understand all of the conditions of your release that we've talked about here this morning?
¿Y comprende todas las condiciones de su liberación que acabamos de hablar el día de hoy?
Sí, señorita.
Yes, ma'am.
You're all done for today, sir.
Ya terminamos por hoy, señor.
Okay.
Madam Interpreter, that's all for you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor. You too. Interpreter will now disconnect. Thunderhawk.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Vincent Thunderhawk.
Mr. Thunderhawk, you are here on multiple matters here today. You have local felony charges involving possession of a dangerous drug and possession of drug paraphernalia. You also have another charge that I'm going to have Mr. Miller show you on a screen. And then we also have a probation violation warrant out of Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
Have you had the chance to take a look at that charge, the other charge that you're here for today?
Yes.
This is the time for your initial appearance on all of these matters. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the legal defender's office to represent you. And that will be on all of these matters. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of all of these offenses. I've also had the opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to conditions of release on all of these matters. I will note that based on the nature of the drug charges, pretrial services has indicated that you may be eligible for a pre-indictment diversion program. However, given the nature of the other charges and the felony warrant, I am not going to enter the order that you participate in that program at this time or ask you about that. Mr. Miller, you can certainly raise that at a future point with someone, but I'm not going to set that hearing today given everything else that's going on.
I understand that.
Okay. So I am going to impose conditions of release on each of these charges. For the charge that Mr. Miller showed you on the screen, sir, the state is going to impose a $250,000 cash bond on today's date. If you're able to post bond in that case, you're to participate in any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. You are not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons while this case is going on. You're not to have any contact with the victim. Don't go anywhere near where the victim is living or working. You are not allowed to have any contact with minors. Do you understand all the conditions of release in that matter?
The bond. I have
Yes,
to pay the full amount. Yeah.
yes, that's a
Okay.
$250,000 cash bond that I have imposed. I'm not doing cash or secured. It's a cash bond. Do you understand all the conditions that I've imposed on that case, sir?
Yes.
Your next hearing in that matter is going to be a preliminary hearing on March 3rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing may or may not occur, but you're going to be responsible for showing up at all future hearings. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Right. On the drug charges, I am going to impose a bond of $2,500 cash or secured. Again, release to pretrial services if you post that bond. Participate in any monitoring or treatment pretrial services directs. You can't have any alcohol or drugs, and you can't have any firearms. The preliminary hearing date in that case is also going to be March 3rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you fail to appear at that hearing, a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you remain in custody on these charges, Mr. Thunderhawk, the jail will make sure to transport you to your next hearing. If you do post bond and get released, you are responsible for staying in contact with your attorney so you know if there are any changes in the court dates. Do you understand all of that, sir?
Yes.
Right. I know I didn't ask either counsel. We do have the warrant to deal with as well. Do either of you have anything you want to make a record on with respect to the conditions of release I've imposed today?
No, Your Honor.
I'd just like to make sure that Mr. Thunderhawk is getting credit for everything. I know this warrant appears to be a no bond warrant. I don't know if we need to impose a bond or if those conditions just mean people get credit for that.
I'm going to impose a $500,000 cash bond on that. These are going to be consecutive bonds, Mr. Miller. So that was my intent on that one, rather than the no bond. And he will get the fugitive warrant hearing on that matter.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Thunderhawk, now we're turning to your warrant out of Denver, Colorado. They have asked for a no bond hold on that. Today, I am imposing a $500,000 cash bond that is consecutive to the two bonds that I've already imposed on the local matters. Your next hearing on your fugitive case is going to be February 25th at 2:30 in the afternoon. Someone from the legal defender's office will be out to talk with you about what's going to occur at that hearing. Do you understand what's happening for your fugitive matter, the warrant out of Colorado that you'll be seen next week?
Yeah, I understand.
And if for any reason you do post all the bonds on these cases, sir, you will have to appear on that February 25th date on your own. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yeah.
All right, you're all done. Hi, tell me your name.
Philip Batist.
Mr. Batiste, you were here today on a charge of criminal trespass and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right. Can you hear
Your
me?
Honor, it looks like we're going to need an ASL tarp.
Hey, hang on, Mr. Poston. Sir, can you, hang on, Mr. Batiste. Are you able to speak to me? You're nodding your head.
You gotta talk, Batiste. Yeah. I know.
Okay, I do see that you're signing. I just want to make sure that you understand what I'm telling you and that you're able to verbally respond to me. Are you able to do that today? Is that a yes? Okay, so I told you that you're here for felony charges of criminal trespass and possession of drug paraphernalia. So you're looking like you're confused or puzzled.
Sorry?
So, Mr. Batiste, what we're here to talk about today, this is the initial appearance on those two charges. You do have the right to, hang on. You have the right to remain silent on those charges. Anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to an attorney because these are felony matters. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. That's the gentleman sitting next to you. That's Mr. Miller. I've reviewed some information from pretrial services that tells me a little bit about you, and it looks like you have a probation hold. So you're on probation, and they're asking that you be held at this time. In light of that hold, counsel, I do intend to impose a $2,500 cash or secured bond today. Does either party wish to be heard further?
Just briefly, Your Honor, I'd note that there was no, based on the interim complaint, I'm not seeing any threat or attempted or actual use of a weapon. I'm not even convinced that there was intent to commit a felony or theft inside any of these apartments.
Anything else, Mr. Miller?
Your Honor.
Mr. Batiste, you're going to have a chance to talk with your attorney about that later. Today, you'll get a chance to talk with your attorney about the charges and the trespass. Today, what we're going to do is impose a bond of $2,500. Mr. Batiste? Mr. Batiste, I need you to listen to what I'm telling you first, okay? I am going to impose the bond of $2,500. That's cash or secured. If you post that bond, you'll be released to pretrial services. You're going to be held in jail even if you post this bond until you can be seen on your probation matter, and that will be in Superior Court. If you do get released, you have to report to pretrial services, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You can't have any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Do you understand all that, Mr. Batiste? I need you to answer out loud, sir. Yes? You're nodding your head yes. Okay. Your next hearing is going to be March 3rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That hearing may or may not happen on that date, so you have to stay in touch with your attorney so that you don't miss any future court dates. You have to appear at your future court dates or they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you don't show up for court, that they could issue a warrant for you? I see you nodding your head. Can you answer out loud?
I understand.
Okay, you understand. Okay. You're all done for today, Mr. Batiste.
You'll have a lawyer.
We're going to talk to Batiste. Ready?
You'll have a lawyer to talk to you, sir.
Jail, are you showing any kind of hold out of Washington County, Oregon for Mr. Capshaw?
No, Your Honor.
Right.
Ellos. I'm super.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Brandon Wayne Capshaw.
Mr. Capshaw, you were here today on charges of theft of means of transportation and drug paraphernalia. These are felony offenses. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you today, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing. We're here to discuss your conditions of release. I've had the opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and your circumstances. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They are asking that I impose a $10,000 bond and release to pretrial services if you post that bond. Mr. Capshaw, I am going to tell you that in reviewing the pretrial services information, they show an active probation warrant for you out of Washington County, Oregon. I don't know if that matter is extraditable or not. I'm just telling you that that is out there. That's all I'm doing today. I note that you have an address in Silver City. Do you have a local address here?
No, ma'am. That here in Tucson isn't where I'm from. I'm from Silver City, New Mexico.
Okay. Great. You can talk to your attorney more about that. Did the state want to be heard any further on conditions of release?
Your Honor, the state submits on the written submissions.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, Your Honor. Just briefly, based on the interim complaint, which is dated yesterday, February 19th, it looks like Mr. Capshaw was supposed to return the vehicle on the 18th, just the day before. It's not clear to me what the cause of the delay was. It's also not clear to me that the daughter of the registered owner had informed Mr. Capshaw, or if Mr. Capshaw had any other reason to know that she did not have permission to lend him that vehicle. For those reasons, I would just ask that the court impose a nominal bond in this matter.
I am going to impose a $2,000 cash or secured bond at this time. If you do post that bond, Mr. Capshaw, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial, you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. You're not to have any contact with the victims in this case. Do not return to the incident location. Your next hearing is going to be March 3rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. Did you hear the date that I gave you, Mr. Capshaw?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so March 3rd at 1:30 is your preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you're expected to show up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you remain in custody, the jail will transport you for your next hearings. But if you do postpone and get released, you're going to have to make sure you stay in contact with your attorney. The conditions of release are going to indicate that you're not allowed to leave Pima Bond. So you're going to need to work with your attorney if you need to return to New Mexico. Don't go back to New Mexico without getting an order from this court. Do you understand?
So,
Do you understand all the conditions of release that I've imposed here today?
yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear at a future hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done.
You're up, man. All the way up, sir. Far to the front side of the voice.
Hi, tell me your name.
Gutierrez.
Ms. Gutierrez, you were here today on a warrant out of Santa Cruz County for drug paraphernalia and narcotic drug possession. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Looks like the warrant, they do have a $100 bond amount on that warrant. I am going to honor that $100 cash bond at this time for that warrant. If you do end up posting that bond, Ms. Gutierrez, you're going to need to contact Santa Cruz County Superior Court for your next hearing. They should be coming to pick you up. It doesn't look like you have anything else holding you at the Pima County Jail. But because we're holding you on that bond today, I'm going to give you another review hearing date to make sure that they have come to pick you up. Your next review hearing here is going to be March 24th at 9 a.m. So if for any reason you are still at the Pima County Jail, they'll bring you back before me like they're doing today, or another judge that you'll see, to make sure that they get that resolved. Do you understand, Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
I need you to answer out loud. Yes. Okay. That's all for today.
Ms. Halbrook, you're gonna be next. Just head right then.
Hi, tell me your name.
Luann Halbrook.
Ms. Halbrook, you are here on multiple matters today. There is a Pima County Superior Court warrant involving 2 counts of aggravated DUI. Actually, 4 counts of aggravated DUI offenses committed back in July of 2021. It's like that warrant was issued October 27th of 2022. There's a $5,500 amount on that warrant. You're also here on a Pima County Justice Court matter and a Tucson City Court matter that we're going to talk about. Your Justice Court matter appears to be a shoplifting charge. Your Tucson City Court also involves multiple DUI charges. We're going to deal with your felony matter first, ma'am. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on that felony matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services, tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. It does look like they're asking for the $5,500 bond amount that's on the warrant. Given all the other misdemeanor information that I have, it is my inclination to impose that bond amount. Does the state need to be heard further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Miller?
Your Honor, that amount strikes me as a bit high. I'm concerned that Ms. Halbrook would not be able to post that amount. I would ask for a lower bond of maybe $1,000 or $2,000.
I am going to impose the bond amount of $5,500. That is going to be a cash or secured bond, ma'am. If you do post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. If you get released to pretrial services, you're going to be ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. This is an alcohol-related offense. They will likely have you be testing for alcohol. You are not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Do not drive without a valid license. Your next hearing in that matter is going to be February 27th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be your arraignment. That will happen at Pima County Superior Court. If you're still in custody, the jail will have you appear via video, much like you're doing here today. But if you postpone and get released, it is your responsibility to appear at that date and time, or a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand all of the conditions of release that I've imposed on that matter today?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, I do.
All right. For your misdemeanor matter out of Pima County Justice Court, that is the shoplifting charge. I am going to release you on that matter. You are not to return to the incident location where the shoplifting occurred, and you're not to have any contact with the victim in that case. Your next hearing on that matter is going to be March 24th at 8:30. If for some reason you're still in custody at that time, then the jail will have you appear via video, much like you're doing here today. But if you get released, it is your responsibility to appear, or they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand all of that?
Yes, I do.
Now we need to talk about your city court matter. These are also DUI charges, 4 different charges. You do have the right to remain silent on that matter as well. I am going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office to represent you. I am going to release you on the city court matters at this time. Your next hearing case is going to be April 18th at 9 a.m. That's going to be what we refer to as a non-transport review hearing. What that means is someone from the public defender's office is going to be out to talk with you, and they'll monitor what's happening on your felony charges as well and figure out the best way to proceed. So you may or may not be transported for that hearing. If you're out of custody, you are expected to appear at that hearing on April 18th at 9 a.m. And again, if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Additional charges for that are that you not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Do you understand your conditions in your city court case, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear for the hearing?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay, you're all done for today. Oh, whoops. Sorry, too many folders on that one. Yeah, sorry. Hi, tell me your name.
Bianca Luk.
Ms. Luque, you were here today on charges of narcotic drug possession, drug paraphernalia, and theft. These are felony offenses. You're also here for a shoplifting matter out of Pima County Justice Court. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the Legal Defender's Office to represent you. Does look like you are on felony probation out of Nogales, perhaps. And then you also have another matter where you're participating in the STEPS program at Pima County Superior Court. I've had an opportunity to review some information provided by pretrial services. I've also had the opportunity to review information provided by the state. It does look like they're asking for a $3,500 bond and release to pretrial if you post that bond. Did you want to be heard further, Mr. Poston?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Miller, I am inclined to impose a bond on this one of $2,500, given all of the other active matters.
I understand that, Your Honor. I would like to be heard just briefly.
Yeah, of course.
I'd be asking for pretrial services release here. Essentially, I'm viewing this as a personal possession case. The allegations of the shoplifting here seem to be based on some sort of device being in her purse and a separate untampered box of merchandise in the shopping cart in plain view. Employees say that the device in the purse could have been used to remove a theft detection device that might be on those nails, but essentially we have merchandise in plain view in a shopping cart. I frankly don't see the probable cause for the shoplifting based on that alone. It almost seems to assume perfect compliance by the clerks at the store in putting theft tampering devices on certain types of merchandise or knowing exactly what should have those kind of devices.
So the shoplifting charges, the Marana case, that's the misdemeanor that we'll talk about in a second. Right now, it's the felony. It is possession cases. Pretrial services has indicated that she is not eligible for steps on this matter. I think because of that shoplifting charge, that can be sorted out later.
Your Honor, it's a felony shoplifting charge in addition to those.
Oh, sorry. Right.
So I don't know anything about the misdemeanors, but I'm looking at the interim complaint for that felony charge.
No, you're right. That is on there as a felony charge as well. Okay. So it is going to be all of those charges. So that's going to be the reason that she's not eligible for steps. Mr. Miller, you can take that up with the county attorney. I'm not going to order that hearing here today. I am going to impose a bond of $2,500 cash or secured. If you do post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You're ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. I do note that you were enrolled in steps back in December, on December 10th, it looks like, of 2024. I don't know if you're still participating in that program, Ms. Luque, but if you do end up posting bond on this and get released, you need to contact pretrial services immediately and figure out where you are with that. You can also contact your attorney, but you need to make sure that you are staying compliant with that program to the extent that you have been so far. You also need to contact, if you do post that bond, your probation officer when you get released, if you get released as well. You are not to have any contact with the victim where the shoplifting occurred. Don't go back to that location. You're not allowed to possess or consume alcohol or illegal drugs. Don't have any firearms. Do you understand all those conditions of release that I've imposed today?
Yes.
Your next hearing is going to be March 3rd at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That hearing may or may not occur, but you're responsible for showing up at all future hearings. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes.
You're also here on a shoplifting charge out of Marana. I am going to impose a $100 cash or secured bond on that case. I am going to appoint Janet Altschuler to represent you, and you're going to be seen tomorrow at noon if you remain in custody on this matter. Again, with the shoplifting, don't return to the incident location. Don't have any contact with the victims. You'll appear via video, just like you're doing here today for that hearing. Actually, it's going to be today at noon. Sorry. So you're going to be seen today at noon by the Marana City Court judge on this matter.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
You're all done for today.
Thank you.
Picard. Nico Picard.
I think we're the first part of the name. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, you're fine.
Hi, tell me your name.
Nico Picard.
Mr. Picard, you are here today on a couple different matters. The first is an aggravated assault on a peace officer. That is a felony offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on that matter. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of that hearing here today. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. Tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They are asking for a $2,500 cash or secured bond and release to pretrial services if you post that. I am inclined to release to pretrial services. With the misdemeanor DV case out of Tucson City Court, there's going to be no contact with the victim. Mr. Poston, did you need to be heard?
Your Honor.
Mr. Miller?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So we're going to deal with the felony case first, Mr. Picard. You're going to be released to pretrial services. That means you have to stay in contact with that agency. You're not to you have to participate in any monitoring or treatment they may direct. You can't possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs while this case is going on, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. No contact with the victim in that case. Your next hearing on the felony matter is going to be March 12th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That hearing may or may not occur, but you are responsible for attending all future hearings, and if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand the conditions of release I've imposed on that felony case, sir?
Yes, but how am I going to have that information so that I can make sure that I comply?
When you get released later today, you're going to get a copy of your paperwork, and that's going to have the court date and time on it. Mr. Miller, if you have something else you want to tell him, go ahead.
If you appointed an attorney as well. Okay, I'm gonna pay for it, says your court date on.
even though I have no prior record, no.
We can proceed, Your Honor.
Right. Do you understand all of the conditions in the felony case, sir, and the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so now we need to talk about the city matter. On that matter, you're here for an assault. It is a domestic violence offense. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you. Again, I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. Looks like the victim in that case is your minor daughter. If I release you on that case, will you promise to appear at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I will show that you're going to be released on your promise to appear. Additional conditions of release at this time, you're not to commit any acts of domestic violence, and you're not going to be allowed to have contact with your minor daughter. Do you have somewhere else that you can reside? Because you aren't going to be allowed to return to where she is living. So you're going to need to make arrangements to go somewhere else. Can you do that?
I will do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you need to return to the residence to get any of your belongings?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I'm going to check a box on your conditions of release form that allows you to return one time to the residence to get whatever belongings you need to, but you must do that with law enforcement present. So when you get released again, you'll get a copy of your paperwork showing your conditions of release for the Tucson City Court case. It's going to have the date and time for your next hearing, which I'm about to give you, as well as the address and all of the conditions that we've talked about here today. This is also the time for your arraignment on this new charge. You are presumed innocent. I'm going to enter a not guilty plea on your behalf. Your next hearing in this case is going to be March 24th at 9:30 in the morning. And that's going to be in front of Judge Mayhew at Tucson City Court. You do need to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. They could also go forward with that hearing in your absence. They could set a trial in your absence. And if you're convicted at that trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, then you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all those consequences for failing to appear at that hearing, sir?
I do.
And do you understand the conditions that I've imposed in that case?
I have.
All right, you're all done. Go ahead.
I have a few questions because I'm the primary caregiver for my children, which means I pay all the bills, taxes, so on and so forth like that. And then all of that mail goes to the household. If she is at school at that particular time, can I retrieve that information and those bills and so on and so forth so that I can maintain a stable household?
So, the information I have from pretrial is that the minor's mother, Miss Picard, is her legal representative. So you can have contact with the legal representative for the purposes of the things that you're discussing here today. But you're not allowed to return to where that victim is living, even if she is not there to do all of that without law enforcement going with you.
I understand.
Okay?
I think so.
All right. You're all done for today.
That's it.
Mr. Ortiz?
Hi, tell me your name.
Manuel Ortiz.
Mr. Ortiz, you're here today on charges of possession of a narcotic drug and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney in this matter. I'm going to appoint the legal advocate's office to represent you. You do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here today. We're here to talk about your conditions of release. This is the time for your initial appearance. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It tells me a little bit about you and the circumstances of the offense. It also tells me, based on the nature of the offenses, that you may be eligible to participate in a pre-indictment diversion program. If you agree to participate in substance abuse treatment and you qualify for and successfully complete that program, then the state would not go forward with these felony charges against you. Is that something that you're interested in, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
With that, I am inclined to release Mr. Urquidez to pretrial services. Does either counsel need to be heard?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Urquidez, you're going to be released today to pretrial services. Your next hearing in this matter is going to be February 27th at 9 a.m. That's next week. That's going to be in Pima County Superior Court on the 3rd floor in front of Judge Hampson. It's very important you go to that hearing. That's the first step in being able to participate in this program if you're eligible. You'll find out that date if you are eligible. Your attorney will be there. Pretrial services will be there. And I'm releasing you to their custody today, which means you must stay in contact with them. You're going to be required to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You cannot have any alcohol or obviously illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Also at that hearing will be treatment providers that will be there so that you can sign up for services on that day if you do qualify for the program. Do you understand all the conditions of release that I've just given you?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Miller, are you willing to waive time for the preliminary hearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
So Mr. Urquidez, normally the state would have 20 days in which to get an indictment and go forward with the felony charges. Because we're going to see if you're eligible to participate in this program and they may not go forward, your attorney has said that it's okay for us to give them some additional time. So we're going to give them up to 45 days to see if you qualify. So your next hearing after the hearing next week, which you really need to make sure you show up for, is going to be a preliminary hearing on March 12th at 1:30. So if for some reason you don't qualify for the program, the next date may be March 12th. I say may because that hearing may or may not occur. So it's going to be important that you stay in contact with your attorney from the legal advocate's office to make sure you don't miss court dates. If you do miss court dates, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand all the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you're all done for today.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.